Heaven belongs to you if you just live right and do right. Heaven belongs to you. Welcome to another edition of Bell's Video and Audio Services Podcast. I am excited tonight to have my special guest tonight to help us to talk about a wonderful topic. What kind of leadership will drive young people from the church? And the next part of it is, and what kind of leadership will they respect? Wonderful topic tonight. We're going to discuss it. And I have a wonderful guest, a wonderful leader that is able and capable of discussing this on this podcast tonight. And I'm just so happy to have him. Before we start tonight, we're going to ask him to come his own way and to give us a bio, any way he want to do it, to introduce himself not only to me, because I know him now, but to my audience and to his audience tonight. It's in your hand, Dr. Anderson.
Wow. My bio. First, I want to thank you, Brother Bell, Deacon Bell, and audio expert Bell for this invitation to come and be on your podcast tonight. I am so grateful and I'm honored to be here because I can clearly think of at least 5 or 10 more people that's probably more qualified to talk on this subject than I am, but nevertheless, it has fallen to my lot. To your audience, I am Dr. Tyree Anderson. I am the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Ensley here in the Birmingham metro area in the community of Ensley. I have been pastoring First Baptist for almost 8 years now. In February, first Sunday in February, it'll be 8 years. So I am grateful and thankful to be with you all tonight. I am a published author. I have 2 books. I got a third one that I'm polishing up now. You get ready to send it to self-publishing. I am the chair of the Office of Social Justice Commission for the Alabama State Missionary Baptist Convention. I am the new dean of Student Affairs for our National Congress of Christian Education. So married, got 2 children, one in college, one in the 6th grade. I love the Lord, and I've dedicated my life to preaching the gospel and to the uplift of our people. I am absolutely raised and reared in Black liberation theology. And so my entire platform is always based on the liberation of Black people and connecting them to God via the gospel. And so I am excited to be here. I don't know what else to say. That's pretty much it.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. And I want to share this in. Not only are we doing this virtual, it will be a continue in person with another gentleman. So we got an organization called Men's Let's Talk. So we will do this also in person at a later date with a bunch of men in person. Talk about the same thing we're going to talk about tonight. But again, thank you, Dr. Anderson, for coming on virtual tonight and to share with me and the audience tonight to help us to understand about this kind of leadership that will drive and also the kind of leadership that will draw. So tonight, I want to ask the question, the main question was, what kind of leadership will drive young people from the church? It's in your hand right now, Doctor. Just take your time.
Well, I think when you think about leadership, you think about people that's willing to give of themselves.
Yes.
In order to move an agenda or to push a vision forward. One of the things that I know really kind of upsets younger people with many of our churches today is we have leadership that is not involved in the vision that they are promoting. Oftentimes it's because they don't even have a vision themselves. And so when you lack vision, when you lack insight of the situation and the context of which people are living, uh, that really pushes a lot of people away. Older members of the church tend to stay because they're loyal to the church and they sometimes can see beyond that. But young people are not moved by the building. They are moved by vision.
Amen.
And, Bible is extremely clear that where there is a lack of vision, the people perish. And young people tend to go where there's vision because they have too much energy, they have too much age, and many of them have resources that they don't want to waste in places where there is no vision. And so where there is no vision, where there is no passion, where there is no fire, individuals have made a decision that they're not going to attend the churches that they grew up in. And so you see a lot of younger people leaving the churches that they were raised in. They'll come back and visit when mama say, I need you to come back and go with me to church, or there's a event that goes on at the church, or there's a funeral of some kind, but they're not going to make church a priority because they feel that they can do more with their time, their energy, and their resources than they can at a church that is stuck in tradition. And so tradition is another thing that really drives younger people away from church. So where there is no vision, where there is nothing but tradition, and we've always done it this way, younger people are not going to stay because they are progressive, they are active, they are part of different organizations, fraternal organizations, sororities, they're part of civic organizations that are out doing something. And so they want to go someplace where they not only can follow a vision, it's not as traditional as it should be, and where they can actually have something to say. One of the challenges in many of our churches is that we are telling younger people, you haven't been here long enough to have anything to say. Well, if I haven't been here long enough to have anything to say, I'm taking me and my money with me, and I'll go somewhere else. And so many of our churches are suffering today because we don't have people that are willing to listen to the next generation. And the reality is, the older we get, the closer we are to meeting the Lord. And if we die and there's no one to take up that mantle, that ministry and that church dies as well.
Amen. Dr. Anderson, I am at the age of 63 years old, and I have been in church all of my life, really. I have been going to church when I didn't even know I was in church as a little child.
Mm-hmm.
And when you finish high school sometime or go to college sometime, you stray away for a little while. I haven't strayed away from the church or even the work of the church. But see, I'm a kind of a different generation than my children's.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that I put up with or went through, they are not going to do it. Mm-hmm. When I went to church, there wasn't no if or and or you going to church. You were going to church when mama, uncle, grandmama, etc., said you going to church. You going to church even though you didn't want to go. But I thank God for that, because I'm here because of my parents and what they did for me. But we are now in a different generation. Mm-hmm. It's different. And when I was growing up, I grew up in the 60s, 61, born 61. And that wasn't in rural Alabama, rural Ronald. The thing that I'm benefit from now, that it wasn't there. Right. But this generation that we see and a part of now, it is so much. And you got to be equipped, not only with material things, but with knowledge to be able to dialogue, able to conversate with them. So every message that you hear come through the pulpit is not beneficial to the younger generation. So what should the leader do and to be able to dialogue on their level?
Well, one of the problems is that many leaders they're not surrounded by younger people.
Okay.
See, I learned growing up that if you want to be relevant, you got to be around those that are relevant.
Amen.
You can't be the boss and not understand that you need people around you in order to help inform you of what's happening, what's going on. I sometimes hear leaders use language out of context. So they're using something that was cool for their children when they were kids, but now there's a whole nother language that we have to be aware of. So when we say it, we don't sound like, we just throwing it out there, big thing, no cap. No cap. When they say cap, that means you lying. If it's no cap, you telling the truth. But how many people actually know that? And so, when you're not with people that are able to inform you of things that are going on, one of the things that you mentioned was about this knowledge piece.
Yes.
We got a major problem because used to be, I'm not saying it is now because I don't know too many people that do it, but used to be that pastors would go to, say, national conventions. They'll go to the midwinter board meeting. And that's a shameless plug. Midwinter board meeting this year going to be in Birmingham. So all you that are watching, y'all need to make y'all way to Birmingham in January and come and support the new president, Dr. Boise Kimber, and the work that's getting ready to go forth. So that's a shameless plug. I wanted to throw that in there.
Okay.
But what you found back in the day is that pastors will go to the convention 2 times. They'll go to the midwinter board meeting or they'll go to Congress. And what they'll do is they'll go to the midwinter board meeting in January. They will buy sermons. They were already prepared and they'll preach for 6 months. Then they'll go to the Congress and buy the last 6 months of the year. So they'll have sermons for the whole year because they did not have the education, they did not have the type of training that's available today. Young people are always on their cell phone or their tablet. And now here's what they're doing. They're fact-checking leaders from the pulpit.
Amen.
They're going in and they're seeing if this sermon has been preached somewhere else before.
That's right.
Because a lot of these guys that are still using other people's sermons, they aren't even changing the name of the title of the sermon, and they sure enough ain't changing the text, and they tend to preach it word by word all the way through. And you can find full print manuscripts online. And so young people are trying to see, are you really hearing from God? Or are you simply preaching what somebody else preached and it was successful where they were, and you're hoping you can get the return on your investment here with us? And so with them always fact checking, them having access to various ancient words in Greek and in Hebrew, because every cell phone and tablet now comes with a translation tool. And so they can see if you're actually doing the work. And that is a big turnoff because they have real problems and real issues that they're dealing with. And they're praying to God, asking God for some answers, hoping that when they show up on Sunday, they get answers, but sometimes they're not getting answers.
Amen.
And so that's a major problem. So one of the things that I think leaders can do is better equip themselves. It makes no sense for people that are in the National Baptist Convention, whether you are whether you at the national level, whether you at the state level, whether you at the association level. October seems to be association month for all of us. Mine is next week. But what we have are classes and workshops. And it makes absolutely no sense for lay leaders to not go and get prepared for the work they have to do. There's training that's taking place at every level. And I mean, we have 4 wings. So we're different than a lot of other states because we have the national convention, the state convention. I'm in the north west, you in the southeast, right?
Okay.
So when you have the northeast, the southeast, the northwest, the southwest, you also have training and conferences that you can go to help you develop. It makes no sense now for pastors in the state of Alabama to have Selman University at their disposal. At their disposal, you could take classes on Zoom. I teach. That was one thing I mentioned in my bio. I'm an adjunct professor at Selman University. And so you can take classes via Zoom and get equipped. But many won't do it because they have this mindset that all they got to do is get a call, stand up, and then God will talk through them.
Amen.
And sometimes God will do that. But there's like a 98% chance you're going to have to prepare. And when younger people are going to college and they're going to prepare, and they're getting prepared to be engineers, and they're preparing to be teachers and doctors and lawyers and whatever their field is, they want a pastor and they want leaders that are prepared as well.
Amen.
And we have to get to this place where we are willing to go through the rigors of theological education and theological preparation in order to get prepared. Because that makes our congregations better, that makes the people better, that makes our associations better, it makes the state convention better, and the national convention. So we've got to take education, Christian education, seriously. Because do you want to get in trouble, say you got in trouble legally? Do you want a lawyer that went to law school or just somebody that just decided they're going to practice? If you get sick, you got a cardio problem, you got a problem with your heart. Do you want somebody that watched Grey's Anatomy, or they went online to WebMD and they talked about how to do an open heart surgery? Or you want somebody that went to school, got prepared, and have practiced in order to do an open heart surgery? It ought to be the same thing theologically. There is a major problem we have in many of our churches with pastors that are engaged in what I call theological malpractice. They are standing up, they are preaching and teaching, but they have no development, no training, and they have not spent time with God to get prepared for that moment.
And Dr. Anderson, I have seen this, that sometimes the pew is more of knowledge than the leader.
Yeah.
How can you, now a leader must have, to be a leader, you must have followers.
Right.
But sometimes look like the pew is the leader and the leader is the follower. And the next part I want to talk about on this here, Dr. Anderson, is that I'm an old Baptist deacon, been the Baptist deacon for 41 years. And I love the hoop. I love for the hoop and the teaching and the hoop. I love both of them. But teach me first, and then you can go ahead and throw the gravy on it if you desire. This young generation, they not so much in the hoop like I am. Right. They want to teach. They want the knowledge to break it down to in other words, they want the word to be exegesis, the word to them, so they can understand it.
Right. Right. And that's one of the challenges we got. In the state of Alabama, we got Church of the Highland. There's no hooping going on at Church of the Highland. And yet they have over 22,000 members in the state. 22,000. And they have a model of teaching. They're teaching. But are they teaching what we need, or are they teaching what is conducive for them to get those people in there?
Okay.
And so when you think about preaching, and you think about the work of not just exegesis, which is reading what the text says, but also a person's hermeneutic, meaning
Okay.
that their interpretation of what they've read.
Amen.
If it is not, and this is where I made it clear in the beginning, I'm a liberation theologian.
Mm-hmm.
My hermeneutic is in liberation. My foundation is Luke 4, 18, 19, and 20.
Mm-hmm.
That's my foundation, that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to give good news to the poor. This idea of giving sight to the blind, this idea of freeing people that are in prison, in order to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. This idea of liberation. Many people who are of the older generation, I'm 50.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up listening to hooping.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up just having a strong disdain, oftentimes, for hooping.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because the hoop became more important than the lesson.
Okay.
And the lesson, we don't see Jesus hooping in the text.
Okay.
There's no tuning. There's no Hammond B3. There's no humming of the Leslie. There's no E flat. There's no D. There's no F. There are no notes that can be played when Jesus is teaching. And so teaching is how we get there. In ancient Egypt, education, the idea of education is this idea of turning the light on.
Mm-hmm.
That people oftentimes sit in darkness until somebody educates them and they turn the light on for them.
Mm-hmm.
Once you turn the light on, now you can begin to bestow the other stuff on them, which is what you call the gravy. It's the food. But people are coming to our churches unable to learn. And they want to learn because they've heard hooping their whole life. And they're looking at their life saying, I'm not seeing any difference. That's one of the things also that is part of that tradition piece I was talking about in the very beginning that's driving these young people away.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to hear hooping. They want to be taught. I have a 19-year-old daughter.
Okay.
My daughter does not want to hear hooping at all.
Okay.
She don't want to hear it. And she said the reason is because there's nothing educational about it. Now, we understand the traditional reason why hooping was part and is part of our tradition.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why is because there was this emotional breakthrough that our ancestors had to have. Because many of the slave preachers did not read, they could not read, but they were able to remember Bible's narratives that they heard. And then the hooping component ties directly into our center of being African.
Okay.
Our young people need to be taught that. That's something they got to be taught, because unless they're taught the importance of it, they don't see the reason why we do it. Okay. So there's a lot of education of our African ancestry that must be taught, but there's a problem. We don't have enough people who know our African history and our African ancestry. And so they continue to do something because that's what they were taught to do. Okay. But just because you were taught to do it don't mean that you ought to do it.
Okay. I was talking to a young lady not too long ago, and she mentioned to me, I need somebody to teach me, because she was not in too much into hooping, but she wanted to be taught. She said, this day and time, what we are going through with, we need a word. We need a real word that will help us make it from day to day. And she was very serious about that. So as leaders in the church, we have to make sure that we giving our, not only our young generation a word, but everybody that need a word, but the young generation is seeking and looking hard for a right word from on high.
There's a book. There's a book we had to read. I read it before I got to seminary because my father in the ministry made me read every book that he read. So my library grew exponentially before I got to seminary.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a book written by Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor called The Certain Sound of the Trumpet. And in the book, Certain Sound of the Trumpet, what Dr. Proctor was arguing about preaching is that people are listening for a certain sound.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when they don't hear it, they go somewhere else. And then they hear it somewhere else, but they didn't hear it where they grew up or where they were raised or where they were developed. And many of our young people are looking for that sound. They don't know what the sound is, but once they hear it, they know that's the sound.
Okay.
They can't put words to it. And many of us are like that. You know, you could ask a person, how was church today?
Mm-hmm.
Say, oh, it was wonderful. How was the preaching? Oh, he did a great job. What did he preach? I don't know. But man, we shouted.
Mm-hmm.
They walked out of there worse than the way they came in. That's one problem. Another problem is my Old Testament professor and the one that taught us how to do exegesis when I got to seminary, Dr. Jerome Clayton Ross, said that one of the problems we have in our church is that when we get to church, we take our brain and put it to the side. We go in, we have church, then when we come out, we pick our brain up and put it back in. Because we're not willing to learn, we're not willing to listen, and we only came in there for an emotional high.
Amen.
And when people come to church for an emotional high, they never meet Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because you meet Jesus at the point of lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And when the lesson is solid, when the lesson is biblical, when the lesson is doctrinal, when the lesson is correct, what you find is that people tend to live better lives. Mm-hmm. Younger people don't leave when the lesson is right. But if they feel that they are wasting their time and they're not getting anything from it, they're leaving. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, once they leave, even if there's a new pastor, they don't come back. And that's a sad indictment on many of our churches, is that we are leaving and we're not coming back. And now, following COVID, it's just not younger people. Okay. Older people are not coming back into the church. Mm-hmm. We don't know if they're watching online. We don't know where they are. All we know is they used to sit there, but now there is empty. Okay. And so it could be the preaching, it could be the choir, it could be the attitude of the pastor, it could be the attitude of the people. We don't know, but they're not coming back. And we got to begin to really evaluate what's the problem. They went back to college. They went back to the grocery store. They went back to the beauty salon. That's right. Went back to the barber shop. They went back to all these other places, but the church is a place that they still won't go in personally. Too many of them are trying to watch online, which isn't good because you don't get the same experience you would if you were at the service.
Yes. Okay. And Dr. Anderson, before I get to the final part of this, the second part of this, it's just so many young folks is looking and seeking for a real word that they love to be challenged.
Right.
They want to challenge their mind. And like you said, they always fact checking. You sit up that pulpit preaching, they got on their phone or they Google, they whatever, they find it out. What are you talking about? where you get this sermon at? You preaching somebody else's sermon. They do that because I
Yeah.
have been guilty of doing some fact checking myself. So and I'm 63 years old, and they're way younger than I am. I I am a parent of two children. A girl, who's the oldest, and the boy is the youngest. And if I get to the part here called respect, now I do not get respect because I'm a certain age. I had to earn the respect even from my children.
Right. Right.
I don't give respect because you have a title, but you have to earn that respect from me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the second part of it for me, I don't want to keep you too long, Doctor, because I'm
Oh,
keep you too long.
we good, man. We good.
so
We go as
so
long as you do.
the second part is, and what kind of leadership will they respect? Because they don't respect every leadership.
Integrity.
Okay.
One of the problems that we got, like for example, we see I was having a conversation with a few of my colleagues talking about this whole Sean Puffy, P. Diddy, Combs
Yes.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
And before everything dropped and he wound up getting arrested and all the other stuff that took place,
Mm-hmm.
there was a well-known pastor whose name was connected to him.
Yes.
That is what they are looking at.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing is their integrity.
Yep.
That pastor's name and no pastor's name should come up in a scandal.
Mm.
That pastor should not be known as one who constantly lives in scandal.
Yes.
And here he is, has to try to defend himself against accusations that are being levied.
Mm-hmm.
And when younger people see that this pastor might be living questionable, they're not coming.
That's right.
If this leader, be it a deacon or a pastor that got extra children running around the church,
Mm-hmm.
they're not coming. When you got constant bickering in church business meetings,
That's right.
they're not coming. So if we want them to come, can we act like we actually love the Lord?
That's right.
Can we actually demonstrate that we are concerned about how our character
Mm-hmm.
is being revealed to younger people or to other people?
Mm-hmm.
Because see, reputation carries. I was in the bank yesterday, and there's a young lady that used to go to First Baptist years ago, long before I got there. And I asked her, said, when you coming back to church? She just started smiling because every time I go in, I ask the same question.
Mm-hmm.
When you coming back? She said, because she ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And she still talk about church hurt
Yeah.
that she had that's keeping her from coming back. She said, I know you the new pastor. I don't watch you online. You're a bad boy, but it's still too painful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, we have to be loving. We have to be honest. We have to have integrity.
That's right.
Is it too much to ask for fellow believers to be morally good? I don't think it's too much to ask. And so if we're going to get them back, they got to hear a certain sign. But they also got to know that when they come back, nobody's going to say, where you been? Because see, we got a bad habit of beating folk up.
Mm-hmm.
That don't come. When they come, instead of us saying, welcome back, oh, I guess you got tired of where you was going. I mean, they just got all kind of like snide comments and they make all kind of statements and they hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to get to this place where we're not hurting people, but we are rebuilding them. We are loving them. And so it requires leaders to have the heart of Jesus.
Amen.
And if we don't have the heart of Jesus, Jesus, in dealing with this woman that was caught in the act of adultery,
all right,
dealt with those men who didn't bring the man.
That's right.
Because the law required to bring both parties. They only brought the woman, and Jesus didn't even look at them. Stooped down, started writing something in the ground, and said, if you were without sin, you go ahead and throw the first rock.
That's right.
All of a sudden, he looked up, all of them gone. He asked the woman, where's your accusers? She said, I don't know. He said, I don't accuse you either. Don't go back and do that again. He never put the law on her. He gave her grace.
Amen.
And so many of our young people that are lost, because see, this is the other piece that a lot of people aren't talking about. The fastest growing religious segment in the United States is witchcraft. That's the fastest growing. Witchcraft is the fastest growing, and the majority of people that are going to witchcraft are Black people that grew up in the church, namely Black women. So if this woman has a child, what do you think that child gonna grow up and become?
That's right.
And so, as you said, you've been in church your whole life, even when you didn't know you was in church.
That's right.
They're gonna grow up in the occult because they left the church, and they're not gonna come back until they are either near death, have some near-death experience, or there's some situation where they realize, I got to get back to God. But where are they going to come? If we want to make sure that we don't drive them away, but we draw them, it begins with us actually being the church. Stop acting like it's a country club. Stop acting like it's a civic organization. Stop acting like it's a fraternity or a sorority. Break up the cliques in the church.
Amen.
Have relevant ministries that meet the needs of the people. They are in need. They are in desperate need of someone to bring them in, to nurture them, to raise them, and to give them hope, because many of them are hopeless. So how do we bring them in? We bring them in by divesting of ourselves and becoming more like Christ.
Amen. And Dr. Anderson, the language sometimes that come out from the pulpit is a drive force that drives young people and some older way. Now, my skin is a little tough. I can take a lot, and just like water on a duck's back, it'll roll off. Young generation, and not only gonna let it roll off, they're gonna roll out.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful when if you have an out with a brother or sister, pull him or her to a side and deal with it.
Matthew 18.
Not while you trying to deliver the word and you have the out in you and you trying to fuss and preach at the same time. It just don't work. Oil and water don't mix.
And you know, it took me a minute to realize that I can't fuss and preach at the same time. Because people have not come there to hear your issue with somebody else. And a lot of times it's only one or two people that's creating all these issues and problems. Everybody else didn't come for that. They came to hear what thus saith the Lord, not who you're mad at and why you mad at them.
Okay.
And we have too many that are trying to fuss in the pulpits, and they ain't preaching.
That's right.
And when you are not preaching the gospel, you create more problems for yourself, not just with the people, but with God.
Amen.
Because God didn't call us to chastise folk. God called us to give love and hope to people. And too many in the pulpit are too busy fussing at folk. And so it took me a minute. Took me a minute to really understand exactly what. But I think I got it now. I need to make sure that I give them what God said. And what I discovered is that the more I give them what God said, they go tell other people, and other people come back to the church.
That's right. That's right. That's
You
right.
can't fuss and love at the same time.
No, sir. No, sir. Dr. Anderson, it is so wonderful information that you have shared with us and the audience. Very much beneficial. And I want to thank you so much. As I said, this going to be continue on in person on a later date. The same conversation. Matter of fact, a young man that's going to come in and talk to Men Let's Talk organization this month, matter of fact. But Dr. Anderson, I am so appreciative of you tonight sharing with us. If the audience is like me, I have been helped, and I thank you for giving me this information that you have shared with all of us. So before we leave out, Dr. Anderson, is there any last words you want to share with the audience concerning this topic before we close out?
Yeah. Ask young people why they left. Engage them, not to chastise, but become a listening ear. Ask them, why are you not coming?
Yes.
And when they tell you, if it is legit, make the course change. You who cares if you're right? Who cares? The reality is they need to know that you care enough for them that you're willing to make whatever adjustments. And they will grow. If they don't have what they need to grow, they'll go somewhere else. So
Yes.
listen to them. Ask them, why don't you come back to church? No, I mean, and they gonna tell you, oh, I don't know. Nope, press the point. Because they got something to say. And if they got something to say, we got to be willing to listen.
Yes.
And if we're willing to listen, there's some fruit that can come from it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. And this has been wonderful again. And I'm just thank you for accepting the invitation.
Now, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna close out and we're gonna go on out with a little bit more part of a song, I guess, and then we're gonna get on out of here, Doctor.
That sounds good to me. My Lord. My Lord.
Doctor, I thank you, and we gone. Good night.
Good night.